At this point in Wes Anderson's body of work, I've seen most of the movies 2, if not 3 times, and I can't help but be a bit surprised at how much my outlook on movies has changed since I first started to watch them. Moonrise Kingdom is yet another Anderson movie that I appreciate more now that I have a greater understanding of how movies are made. Even over the past few weeks, I feel I've started to reevaluate the ratings I gave films a year ago. Moonrise Kingdom is one of the few movies, however, that I have given a higher rating than before. The reason for this is because I feel that Moonrise Kingdom is a film that makes fun of and interrogates the kind of person I was when I first watched it. What I mean by this is that Moonrise Kingdom, in my eyes, is a film that studies the outlook of young people on things that they truly do not understand. For someone of the age I was when I first watched, the themes of this film would provide nothing more than the occasional small chuckle. The premise of the film being what it is, there is a great opportunity to mock the childish and misguided opinions of young people. The screenplay takes every moment it can to comment on the things that the two main characters haven't got the first bit of knowledge about. The way Sam shuts down Susie's commentary on how she wishes she could be an orphan is just one of many examples of conversations the two kids have about things completely beyond their reach. Anderson and writing partner Roman Coppola center the plot around this, and it's pulled off incredibly well. The lengths at which Sam and Susie will go to stay together are increasingly ridiculous throughout the film, but in their naivety, it's believable. And I believe that their naivety is what makes their characters so endearing. It's not at all irritating that the kids in this film have such a limited understanding of how the world works. It's just so innocent and inquisitive that it's impossible not to be attached to them. The two leads that play Sam and Susie pull off their roles surprisingly well. In fact, all the child actors give really great performances. I can't tell if the actors themselves are self-aware of the kind of person they're playing, but regardless, they do it well. The adult actors are just as commendable. I'd say most of all Edward Norton, who nails his role as an insecure and ambitious scout leader. Anderson's writing of all the characters is brilliant. It's not unusual to see the kind of humor that Moonrise Kingdom employs in an Anderson film, but it's great to see that he adapts it to suit the story and characters. More than this, the dialogue is much less heavy-handed about character intentions and nature. I say this in the sense that while it's obvious at some parts that the characters are saying things for the purpose of characterization, but it's not all that obnoxious. I find that the writing throughout the film in this regard is quite subtle and very well worded. Less subtle is the stylization of this film, which is by no means a bad thing, it just felt like a natural segue into the next part of the review. One of the things I love about Wes Anderson's films is the consistency in his colors. The oranges and yellows of Fantastic Mr. Fox, the pinks and purples of the Grand Budapest Hotel. Moonrise Kingdom, however, doesn't opt for a single color as its theme, but rather a similar aesthetic applied to every color. The film is quite vibrant, but I really like the softer and more mellow aesthetic that it has. I like the more natural feel that is derived from this. In a story like Moonrise Kingdom, there is less freedom for Wes Anderson to manipulate the sets as he usually does, but even so, he manages very well. Throughout the film, the sets are chosen really quite well, and they are very consistent even through the swapping between nature and civilization. The visuals also have a really great way of introducing characters and implying relationships via associated imagery. The best example I can give of this is the constant shots of Susie with her binoculars, and when she puts them down, she has a scowl on her face. To contrast this, the first time Sam and Susie meet, it is through Susie's binoculars that we see Sam. When she puts the binoculars down, there is no scowl. This is just one example of how well edited Moonrise Kingdom is. Another thing that makes me say the editing is great is the way it connects the movements of different characters. This is something I noticed from the beginning of the film, and it's probably the best example of this. The opening sequence does a brilliant job of showing the different characters and their individual reasons for being invested in the main issue, but it also connects them all together. Everything is captured very well by the cinematography, and it's mostly the same as the rest of Wes Anderson's movies, so just like every other time I'll ever mention it, the cinematography is really well used and it looks really good. The film's comedy is not quite as omnipresent as some of Anderson's previous movies, but I do love the return to the audio humor that I witnessed in Rushmore. The use of a sound design, particularly levels to create running jokes, is really quite amusing. The score is also great. The Darjeeling Limited's use of instruments from the area the film was set in was something I liked about an otherwise arbitrary score, and it's cool to see that this idea carries over into Moonrise Kingdom. Unlike the Darjeeling Limited, however, the score is much more well used and very appropriate. It carries the same sense of misguided childhood understanding that the story does. In saying this, I mean that the score is quite adventurous and dramatic with an edge of hyperbole, while also using instruments that are elements of the story like a children's choir. I can't intuitively say which is better out of Fantastic Mr. Fox and Moonrise Kingdom. Although I certainly like Fantastic Mr. Fox more, I honestly couldn't say which is definitively better in my opinion, and that's a bit of a surprise. Moonrise Kingdom...
10 out of 10.